Okay, so I found this feature request on the forum that speaks about an easy way to manipulate output of a field, primarily targeting admin view list layout. And so I'm going to make this tutorial to sort of explain something, because I don't think it's really complicated, but I could be wrong, and well, then you guys can just tell me. The reality is I'm going to show you how to manipulate admin field text in a loop very easily in JCB. There used to be this way that you'd create your own loop in custom code area and then manipulate the actual field output, which is also really not that complicated, but we actually have improved that dramatically. So here we have the look demo view. So I only have this one component here called demo, and it's in the look, having this look view. When you install the component and you actually add a few looks, it looks like this. James, Peter, hi there my friend. This is sort of the list view. Now let's say we open James and we see, okay, there is email, there's a mobile, there's a birth date, there's a website, and here is the actual description. Now let's say we want to toggle with this. We want to add, maybe if any of these values exist, or maybe at least if the email value exists, we want to add it. Okay, so we need to know if this value is triggered, then those three values are required. So we could first check what is this value's database name, and there are different ways to do that, but we can get that value's database name, and then these as well. And so that's just sort of prep to before you go and do it in JCB. So we want to change the description area so that when there is more information, it actually shows it. That's probably the expected result. We could also just change in James. We can check if there's James, let's say user, and if we find James as a username, we could actually add a link to the user. Anyway, these are all kind of things that you can do with this new feature. Now it's not new. I think there has been tutorials made about this. I'm just since I quickly got a moment, I can just make another one as a heads up. Okay, so we go back to JCB and we go back to the admin views. Now in the admin views there is an area called admin field relations. Now maybe the name isn't that obvious. It is actually the new area, which is very powerful and which can do stunning things. In fact, this very view which you're seeing here, showing the edit view and showing this, all of this is done with that feature. And even these buttons that you see here is done with that same feature in JCB itself. So JCB's own admin view is using this feature to actually achieve this result. Okay, so these buttons and all of this is done through that feature. And I can show you that quickly if I was to import JCB here. So the import takes a while, so while it is going on, I'm going to actually go into this area in the look and sort of start explaining how it works. I'll show you to you in a moment. The import is still running. Okay, so we'll open this and you'll see now there is this list field, then there's the column name, joint field, area, joint type, and set. Okay, so this area you need to select the existing list item. So when you set up an admin view, you choose which of the fields must show in the list view, correct? Well, that's that list here. And so in this case we only got description and name showing in the list field, sorry, in the list view. And so this means that we need to select one of these. Now you cannot leave this unselected. You need to actually target one of those. So in our case, we're going to take description. Now we can change the if you remember, I showed you when we opened the looks area, the actual name here for description is description, which is the default. Now you can change that. You can, with this table column name, if you leave the word default, it will stay with description. But if you change the word default, like my own header, you're actually going to change the header. Okay. Now you can, from the database, the fields that are not in the list view, you can select any of those fields. So we were saying, okay, we want to check the add more, and we want to also pick the email, and we want to mobile and date. Those are required. See, they're required fields. Now this switch here gives you the option to say where do you want to interact with these values. So there are 3 places currently available: before modeling, in the model, after modeling, because sometimes some of these fields are actually list values, and so when they come out of the database directly, they have like IDs, like 10 or 20 or whatever. And then you might want to use the actual ID to get other values from the from another database, or from a helper method, or whatever. So then means you need to do it before modeling. And you can have multiple of these rows. Okay, so this is one row. You can have another row, also again targeting description, acting in different moment. Okay, so these are like different moments of the data. So before the modeling, you got an ID. After the modeling, you're probably going to have the actual name. Like if it's linked to a type table, it might be like blue or whatever, the word. And so, and then there is the view, which is the actual function I think is being requested in the forum post. So the view is where you've already got all the values together, and it's actually ready for display. But even at that point, you now are no longer having the ID. You are actually working with the final value that will be displayed. And each of these have their own reason for existing. And you can't simplify that, because then you're going to break the whole approach of how Joomla compiles the data to the display. It needs to first get the data from the database, then it needs to model it, and that means adapt it to the display purpose, and then it needs to show it, which is the view. So I think these 3 target areas is really as straightforward as it can be. Now we want to actually manipulate this data in the view, but we want to get another little bit of input first. So I'm going to select before. This glue, what this glue means, it's that it's going to actually concatenate these values into the description value with a comma. This is actually all it's going to do here. So if you have multiple values you want to show in the description, and all it needs is comma separation, then this is what you'll use. But you, most of the time, you want to add custom code, so you click on this. Now it will load a set of comments, and actually the code sort of mimicking the glue function, actually saying, well, this is how the glue function would have looked like. You know, the glue type, joint type, would have actually produced this code. So we're sort of showing you the under the hood default code. That means that description is ID 84, and so here in the top it actually shows you that 84 is description, this one is more, this one is birth, this one is, so we know that this value is an integer because it's the more you know, add more or not, yes or no. And in the model, before modeling, it's still an actual value, whereas after modeling it will probably be yes or no. Okay, now why am I showing you this? Because these actual placeholders, this curly brace and the number, also works in the other areas. So if you select this one, it's the same, but if you select view, you'll see the whole thing is going to change. And now we are actually working with square brackets field, because this block here now represents the actual HTML, no longer the database value, but you could still work with the database value. And the way you did that would be to actually make use of this snippet. So this is the snippet I was looking for, this little piece of code, because it's the add more. And it's going to tell me, well, if add more is true, then these other values exist, because of the GUI being forcefully telling you this is compulsory input values if you want to add more. Okay, so we'll use that actual value. So now that we've got the value, we can go back to the view, and we know that this one is description, and it shows it to us again here at the bottom. We actually don't want to show the add more value, so we're going to just take it away. What we want to do is we want to actually just ask a question. Now in HTML we need to jump into PHP. Now we're in PHP, and we can say if we can use that placeholder as a is it true, and then we print out this break and all those fields, and then we end our if, and we're done. So we're asking simply if the add more is true, then this. Now I'm also going to remove this comment here, because it's a comment just for you to know what each value is. So we can see, okay, birth is value 100, and email is value email is value 100, birth is one okay, so I removed the wrong value there, so I'm gonna grab this one and then I'm gonna add it, just basically replace the read more. I want birthday to be first, then I want the email, and then the mobile. That's right. Now I could do an unordered list as well. I could say, okay, I want a UL here, and then this each of these fields as a list item. So we could do, you know, like that. So I'm actually able to separate the actual HTML that is by default being produced for the field from my changes I'm adding as an extra layer, really, to the output. Now, why do we want to separate that? Well, simply because sometimes these fields could be links, right? It could be links to other tables. And since JCB does a great job already building that for you, you don't want to really do that yourself. So using this approach, you just leave JCB to do what it does best, and you just add whatever you want to add. Now obviously you can say, no, I want to actually get to the value myself. Well, then you use this type of notation, the item braces with the value number, which we got from the previous options, right? And now I'm ready to remove this comment and basically save out of here. So we've got our display manipulated, and it will now actually function as expected. So we just compile and install. Now let's go look at the looks table. So we see now there is hi there, my name, my friend, and it actually shows an unordered list of all the values. Now if I opened this item here and I was to say no and save and close, you'll see that it doesn't show those okay, this is not exactly what we expected, so let's go look at it. Okay, so here in the code we see that it added the if, and here is our unordered list, and here it ends the if. Now probably, remember I said that this is no longer an integer, so it's probably a string. So let's look at that value. Let's see what it is. Now since my code lives in a Docker image, I am not opening this with an IDE but rather with Nano. You could also use Vim, but if you've set up your local environment so you can access your code more easily with the IDE, then you'd simply open this actual file. So you would open the template file in the looks views area under your administrative area components com demo, and basically you'll open the default, I'll show you in a moment. You'll be opening the default body file, this one. This is where we want to actually make changes. So here we are in the actual file in Nano, and I'm going to scroll down, and in this tag I'm just going to do a var dump to check the value. And I'm going to save it and just refresh the page. And so we see that the value that is actually in there is this it's actually a string value. Now since we see this as a little bit of a, oh no, we don't want to work with a string there, we're going to make a little tweak which I think will even empower you a little more to understand the ability of this area, which is actually there for a good thing. So we'll just go back to our tweak we made. So here we're going to add a new line. Gonna also grab the description again, and we're gonna do the before and then custom code, and we're basically gonna add the value to a new string. So we're gonna say we want to add more, so we're gonna take the add more value, and we're gonna say save for later, and then just say underscore add more. We now know this value is what this is what it's going to be called, and we know it's before modeling, so it's still an integer at this point, and then we are going to use that one in our code instead. So we could have even come here and add our dump in here, but I wanted to show it to you in the code. Then only after realized I'm in a Docker image, so easier way would probably be to just add var dump here and then compile and check out if you're on a server or something. Okay, that should do the well, you could change the order, although the actual order is determined by the area, what executes first. If you're in the same area, then yes, then the order is actually explicit used in the execution. This one first, then you know. So now we're going to save out here and just compile it again. Now it works as expected. It doesn't show, and if we go back to the code, let me just open that up. If we go back to the code, it now uses the add more integer value to determine whether to display this block. Now you can do some indentation in the implementation and make it look pretty. But so really that's how simple it is to actually get those values set, save and close. And here we've got them again. I can go into Peter and I can say no and save and close, and then it doesn't show. So I really think this is the functionality you're looking for. I don't think it's really that complicated. I think it gives you tremendous ability to really adapt the output quite powerfully. And if you're still thinking there's something else that you're actually trying to achieve, then sure, give me a heads up. But I think for now this is what we've done. We've added this functionality in JCB where you could, per admin view, you could tweak the output. Now remember I said that JCB itself does this. Well, here's the admin view, and if I open the relations tab, okay, it's still busy importing that, so it's still busy. We just give it a moment. Okay, let's try again. We do the relations. Oh, I messed it up. I think I messed it up. Okay, well, we use the Joomla component area instead. You see here we are doing the same kind of implementation, and we're adding our own HTML, custom HTML, PHP as well, doing validation, building the buttons. Here's the buttons, the titles, the icons, and here we are actually pressing that out. So you could take the JCB component and look at how we did many of the smart behavior you see in JCB. This is the whole idea. So some places we're targeting, well, it seems like in all of them we are targeting the view. And so yes, if you also look at the looks table now, you see it also shows my own header here, so you could also manipulate the header, which is a nice option for this table column. It's showing a little bit odd if I zoom out. Okay, so you can add even custom placeholders in here. Custom code placeholders can also function in this area here, and would give you the reusability nature. We have a certain type of implementation on a field, and maybe you want to use it in other fields or other tables. You can use the custom code notation, move the whole code basically to custom code, and just add the placeholder in here. Since the placeholder, even this, like that, this placeholder can be moved to custom code, because it first would enter it into this area, and then it will later in the compiler actually update these placeholders. So custom codes works very well in this area as well. Okay, well, enjoy. Until next time, take care.